Welcome, everybody, to the Say It Different podcast. My name is Tyler Altoff. I am your host, and I'm joined with my good friend,
great friend,
Justin Daly.
I went. What happened last week that I went from great friend to good friend?
Look, we're 11 episodes in. You just gotta mix it up sometimes.
But those are two very distinct words.
What happens is I have the same opening bit every episode, and I notice that you just nod off a little bit, and I just got to make sure you're awake.
But in America, we've redefined all the words. I just would like to define that there's a big difference between good and great.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So, what's the biggest difference between good and great in the context of your friendship?
Well, one's comparative, one's superlative, right? You have an English major.
Superlative? I think that's some type of award.
No, I think it's when you say it's like great, best, biggest. Those
You're
are all
my superlative friend.
Superlative. I get it, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Great. Well, welcome to the Say It Different podcast. And listen, we're just trying to say things a little different, to bring some common sense, biblical perspective to all the issues we're facing, like redefining words and English terms. And so we're here to hopefully add some value to your perspective.
Great.
So I'm going to, next episode, you're going to do the opening. And I just want to kind of see how
I did the
you
close
know
last
it.
time. I don't like that.
I want to see how you know
I think it's really important that people stay in their roles.
What that opening act is like is if you've ever watched the Summer Olympics and you've got the gymnastics routine and you've got the springboard over the horse, and then you got to stick the landing. That's what that opening act is like. You got to stick the landing.
I feel like the best thing you offer in this podcast is the opening and the close.
Yeah, because it's predictable. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take. You don't want to take
my
your
moments.
best moments.
Yeah, you don't want to take my
moments.
moment.
Your best moments are bookends, and so
I'm
here
trusted. I'm trusted to run the offense in safe settings.
Yes,
we're up by 40 or down by 40. Tyler's in the game.
It's the backup quarterback. Hand the ball off.
Yeah. Great. Just don't make any mistakes.
Don't make any mistakes.
Yeah. Just read the playbook.
Throw it to the right team.
Just read the playbook. Hey, this came up as we were setting up today, getting ready to record, and I thought it was an interesting question because I have not thought of this place in a long time, and I'm curious, when is the last time you had a meal at Applebee's?
That's actually, we don't script any of this. You have a plan. I'm here just to respond.
Well, I read the playbook. You get into the moment, sir.
I'm Johnny Manziel. I don't have a playbook. Yeah. This is crazy. The first time I've been to Applebee's in the last 10 years and the last time was actually with Gabby celebrating a really special moment. We were in California.
So you recently had Applebee's?
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
that's why you got so excited when I said Applebee's, because there was a sparkle in your eye that I haven't seen in your eye in quite some time.
Gabby doesn't like seafood, so we went to a sushi place in her hometown, which was quite possibly the worst sushi I've ever had. I took one bite and literally wanted to throw up in the restaurant.
So you had to wash it down.
I'm a big texture person, yeah. So we looked around, and it was like 10 o'clock because we had a super romantic evening, different time, different place.
Yeah. But not too romantic.
Not too romantic. We weren't married yet. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. We have priorities. We have purity.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I wasn't saying you don't.
No. And
but if you said you had a meal at Applebee's, people could be questioning where the line is, and I just need to let them know
the
you're a
only
very
place
principled man.
that was open was Applebee's.
Yeah.
And I had Applebee's a couple years ago.
What did you order there?
I don't know the name of it. We ordered the appetizer trio, because you're at Applebee's.
Did it have the quesadilla? Because I remember the quesadilla at Applebee's being really good.
Yeah, we peaked at the appetizer trio. Everything was downhill.
Did you get an entree after that?
We did get some entrees. We did not eat them.
Was it fajita roll up? Is that something they had there back in the day? That sounds familiar.
I don't remember.
Onion peels?
Yeah, I don't remember. We the appetizer and the dessert were edible. Everything in the middle just seemed.
Yeah. Well, what music was
frozen.
playing? Do you remember what music was playing? Because this was another piece of our conversation during setup here. What was the music?
Do you remember, like, back in the day when Applebee's turned into Club Applebee's at 10 p.m.?
That was after 10.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, big time.
We called that the Bee's Nest in the town I grew up in. Yeah, that's when it transitioned from Applebee's to the Bee's Nest.
It's a full hive in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it was ladies' night sometimes, and that's when the beehive was hopping.
Wow.
But
no, I'm not a big fan of Applebee's.
You don't remember the music?
No, we said earlier, I think next season we should have a full 5 or 10 minute discussion on I have a clear tier of fast food and restaurants.
We've delved into that.
And Applebee's is the bottom.
Yeah.
It's the bottom sit down restaurant chain.
Well, I think that speaks to the desperation and the tough spot you were in when you chose Applebee's, if it's at the bottom and you chose to go there with Gabby?
No, Applebee's is a place that you don't go. It's a place you end up.
Yeah.
And there was nothing else available. And that if you don't have options in your life, could be a great leadership lesson. Then you go with the only thing that you have in front of you.
What are the chances Nickelback was playing in the background at this Applebee's?
I feel like that's a great correlation. Nickelback and Applebee's are on the same level. In their
Nickelback
genres.
has an Applebee's vibe.
Oh, for sure.
And it's playing right now in an
For
Applebee's
sure.
lobby
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at this photograph. It's playing right now.
Yeah. Hey, this is another question that came up. Jackson's on our team here.
Yep.
And he was asking what I thought about a new Christian nightclub that's opening up in downtown Orlando. He's gotten sponsored ads on the Instagram.
Wow.
And I'm just curious what you think about Christian nightclubs. My first question, just to help you not feel like you're backed in a hole here.
Yeah.
Backed in a hole?
Back against the
I think
wall.
it's back in a corner.
Yeah.
Backed in a corner.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Applebee's. My mind's just all over the place right now.
You're thinking about those onion petals.
Yeah. Those are good. Those are good pedals. That dipping sauce, that'll get you right.
You talked about back in the day. I don't think you've had Applebee's sober. It's not good.
Last time I had Applebee's was probably 15 years.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Christian nightclub.
I was sober. Yeah, I was sober. College, I was not.
Yeah.
But I loved Applebee's in college.
I bet you did.
But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christian nightclub. My first question would be what denomination is behind it, because that would influence.
That's so true.
That would influence the.
Because if you got a reformed
experience.
denomination, there's going to be bourbon and cigars.
And theology questions on tap. Yeah.
It's going to be very contemplative.
Yes.
But slightly inebriated.
Yeah. Baptists, there's no dancing there.
Oh,
if the Baptist is
gosh.
behind it.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Soda water on tap.
And then no moving.
Yeah.
Pentecostals, there are going to be a lot of moving, but
A lot of dancing.
but no liquid flowing.
Unless it's water, because you got to stay hydrated on the dance floor.
Hydrated. Maybe some oil. Could be a lot of olive
Be a
oil in there.
slippery dance floor.
Christian nightclub seems kind of like a oxymoron a little bit.
A little tough, right?
Yeah. Whoever's doing it in town, we support you. We love you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the kingdom. But I don't see it being around for long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a part of the Christian nightclub that there's how most nightclubs have like bouncers?
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest.
Is there a prayer line?
Well, you could make an argument for that, but I would suggest that there needs to be like a bouncer, grind patrol on that dance floor, because you can't let those Christians get too close.
A little PP.
Save some room for
Purity
Jesus.
patrol.
Yeah, and Jesus was very hefty.
Yeah.
Ma'am, back it up, sir. Leave some space here.
Jesus was hefty.
That's
Like
what I would say, because you
Okay.
need extra space.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're for anything that, Christians are doing in the name of Jesus, but I probably would have made an investment elsewhere, personally.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
No.
But I'm sure we'll hear more
But
about
a lot
it.
of Christians will. Or not.
Maybe non-Christians.
But it's a Christian nightclub.
Well, now we're into a whole nother level
Yeah, I have a lot of
layer of
I have a lot of things that this is not going to go
philosophy.
anywhere. What's on your notes?
Is it an outreach, or is it for the body? Yeah, that's an interesting tone, interesting question. The only thing on my list here is I want to ask about something that I see a lot in life, which is the expectation gap.
Okay.
Meaning, I think that I find myself a lot saying that the only guarantee in life is that it's going to change.
Yeah.
In the line of work that we do, we see a lot of people, we all struggle, but a lot of people struggle with life because it's not matching at their age what they thought it was going to look like.
For sure.
And maybe life has changed in ways that they didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's your job, whether it's just your health, I don't know. Those things kind of can change, and it doesn't match expectations that you had. And if we don't know how to adjust our expectations, it's going to eventually lead to offense. And if we've got offense in our heart, the game's over, man. We're making all kinds of bad choices. Has that ever happened to you before?
Yeah, I think especially when I was younger, and even now, like you compare, right? You compare When I was younger, I would compare to people older. Now I don't think comparison goes away, because you see people. I'm 39. You see people that are 39, maybe, whether it be kids, whether it be business, whether it be ministry. You think, why are they ahead? I think a lot of times we're kind of gauging our success based off of our peers. And when we're younger, we're gauging our success off of people that are ahead of us. That's always dangerous, because they're older, they've gone through more stuff, they've gone through more pain, or they've had more privilege, or who knows how they got there. There's so much out of context for that comparison. But even at our ages, we're looking around at people, from high school or college, or in our same fields of ministry or business. You look around and think, why don't I have what they have? And so, I think an expectation gap breeds insecurity, comparison, bitterness, jealousy, for sure.
That's such a sneaky thing, though, with jealousy, comparison, and envy, which it's probably like comparison, jealousy, envy would be the way that typically would lay out. Step 1 is comparison. Step 2 is jealousy. Mm-hmm. Envy is probably the worst of the three in terms of where your heart's at.
Yeah, because then you're going to turn it towards kind of self-sabotage. What did I didn't do? What did I not have? Make excuses or blame God. Yeah, I'd agree.
So how do you... We've touched on some of this stuff before, but just I think it's tied to this. How do I protect myself from even stepping into the trap, right? Whether it's social media. I mean, we're in a comparison-driven culture. We really are.
I'll give you a practical and a spiritual. The practical is, if that's a weakness for you, just get off of those things. Why am I spending my life following somebody else's life? So if comparison is a foothold or a struggle for you, why are you spending your life comparing? Just get off of social media. Get off of those things. Spiritually speaking, we've said it since the beginning. The Bible, our relationship with God is not is just our relationship. It's personal. It's not our parents, it's not our grandparents, it's not our friends. And God gave you gifts, and He gave me gifts, and He gave me a lane, and He gave you a lane. And I'm only going to be held accountable for what I do with what He gave me.
Right.
And so God didn't call me to be a worldly success. He called me to be obedient to His call, His command, and the gifts He's given me. And so it's a very spiritual answer, but it's freeing to know I just need to be faithful. The Bible says, well done, good and faithful servant. Now, it also tells us to be fruitful. We should produce with what God's given us. But my self-esteem, my self-worth, how I feel as a man, a husband, a dad, all the different areas should not be dictated off somebody else. It should be dictated off my relationship with God, and then what I've stewarded well of what He's put in me and in front of me.
Yeah. Some of us were just created to open and close a podcast, while others of us were trusted with the big moments.
It's true.
Yeah.
But that is true. John Maxwell talks about the leadership of the law, the leadership of the lid. We all have different talents. There are areas where out of a 1 to 10 that I'm a 9 and you're a 4. And then there's areas where you're a 9 and I'm a 4. And I could spend my life trying to up that 4, and I should, but I need to lean into the areas that I have capacity. I have influence. I have, spiritually speaking, an anointing, which is a potential and a power, an empowerment from God to walk in those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, all jokes aside, there is a security and more importantly, a freeing just feeling that comes when you can just embrace the assignment that God has on your life. And it's like, oh yeah, great.
Being comfortable in your own skin with who God created you to be.
Yeah. I think there's 2 questions specifically with this idea of expectation gap in life that I want to kind of get your thoughts on. The first is, how do I pray and plan and look at my future? And with that process, it's inevitable that I'm going to start to picture in my mind things looking a certain way. Or if I'm starting to pray, and if it's a big thing coming up, I can remember, getting married, launching the church, these big kind of defining, having kids, getting these pictures, and then God's giving me these verses to give me the faith and the encouragement to and the courage to step out into these ventures. And my mind's picturing all of this stuff that is inevitable. And then life starts unfolding, and it doesn't hit it all the same way that it did in my mind, right? So how do I just balance all of that, right? Like it's okay to pray and believe and plan for my future. But when my
For
future
sure.
doesn't go the way that I'm picturing it to go, what do I do when I'm in that moment, when it starts to change, or when my marriage isn't doing what it should be doing, or what was doing in my head, when my kids start acting ways that God told me they're going to be this when they were a baby, and now as a teenager they're looking like that.
Yeah.
My health, God gave me a picture that I'm going to be, a grandparent, and at 40 I'm getting diagnosed with whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do I do when I'm in the middle of those moments?
I think a lot of times we get into trying to figure out the details and the structure and the next steps. And we always go back when we talk at church to that verse in Psalms where there's a light and a lamp. The journey of a Christian is a journey of faith, a journey of trust. So our job is the next step. God has the plan, he has the path, and oftentimes he's working a much bigger. Our story seems big to us, but God is writing a much bigger story. We are a small part in a big story. And if we make our part bigger than it actually is, we get obsessed with the details. When really, God's just concerned that we get to the eternal destination, which is with him, that we find Jesus.
Yeah.
And the person or the people that we become in this process. We are so obsessed with the details or kind of the end result, the outcomes, and God is way more concerned with who we're becoming in the in-between.
Yeah.
And so I think we're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What about that idea of offense? How do I know? So if I'm in that moment, expectations, that's going to take time. That's not a switch. Like, everybody's going to feel like
And it's never going to go away. We talked about it over the past few weeks. We're still going to be human. So we're never getting this right. But yes, it should get less and less if we are trusting in God more.
So how do I gauge my heart or test my heart or evaluate my heart to know if offense is kind of creeping into it? How do I just kind
like
of
offense with others?
Or just offense with God? I mean, right? It'd be so many people are mad at God when things don't go that way. I mean, that's the ultimate like goal, I think, probably of the enemy in some of these circumstances that happen. But others, our calling, our job. I mean, how many people have left jobs because they're offended at their boss? Because
a practical thing for me, whether it be God or other people, is when somebody else is talking good about them, do I always have a rebuttal of something bad about them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you say, man, God's been so good. Well, yeah, he has been, but what about this? Or you love somebody, but I have an offense and unforgiveness with them. And you're like, man, I had such a great interaction. Yeah, but do you know like who they really are? Yeah. So like out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so oftentimes my speech tells me what my heart actually feels. Like, I don't have any offense, but then I watch my language or I hear my language and I think, oh, maybe I am offended by that person. Okay, maybe I do have a disconnect with God because you're talking about how faithful he is. And I'm like, yeah, for you. Yeah. But what about this, and this? So for me, my language or what I voice often is a good symbol or symptom of what my heart actually holds.
If you find yourself in that moment, like you're hearing that kind of practical layout of process, you're finding yourself feeling like, no, I kind of identify some people or identify that I've got some feelings towards God. What do I do with that? How do I address it?
For me, it's the same way. So if it's coming out, like we talk a lot, you and I, James 5, where it talks about confessing your sins one to another so that you can be healed. For me, I'm an external processor. So for me, I have to say what I'm feeling to somebody I trust, and just saying it, there's a healing process because it's out of here and now it's out here. Now I can kind of analyze it, hopefully accept some feedback or accountability, and then move forward in a different way. So for me, I just got to get it out. Anything that stays in here or in here can hold us captive.
Right.
That's why confession is good for the soul, because when it gets out of all of the enemy connecting these dots. So either we hear how dumb it is, how crazy it is, or somebody else says, like, do you actually believe that?
Right.
And so for me, getting that bitterness or that entitlement or that offense just out in the open But if it's not with somebody close that you can trust, then it turns into gossip and it turns into slander and it turns into just spreading ugliness. So it's not a post. It's not a direct message. It's not a group conversation. It's a pastor. It's a mentor. It's a close friend. It's a spouse that you can say, I'm wrestling with something.
Yeah. When do I know it's time to make a phone call or arrange a sit down and kind of confess, hey, I've been harboring some feelings and I just think I need to work through this?
I think it's the minute that you recognize it, whether it be through your language, through you just feel jaded or you feel hurt or you just feel heavy, just anger. Like somebody does something small. Let's say I'm holding offense towards you.
Yeah.
And you're 15 minutes late for something. And I'm like, bro, you're always late. Like you're such a terrible friend. Like what you don't value anybody's time but your own. And if, in the middle of that moment, I'm thinking, gosh, I'm really overreacting. So it's going to come out.
Right.
Like whether through your language or through your actions or just the heaviness that you're carrying. So as the minute that you identify it, we have to start fighting against it because that'll kill you. I mean, bitterness, envy, and offense will just keep you in such kind of bondage and captivity emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I are completely different personalities. In the sense that you're a big planner and I'm a big kind of go with the flow. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as a planner, how you approach the fact that you can't control a lot with life, right? You can control what you can control, but my wife's a big planner. And when things don't go to plan, that opens up this, what are we going to do?
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest things I wrestle with because I think there's a plan, a strategy, an idea that can fix anything. So that's probably actually one of the biggest wrestling matches I have with God is I can figure it out. And most of the time I can. Like God, through a lot of different training, experiences, relationships, and just what God's put, the gifts he's given me, that is a strength of mine to problem solve.
Yeah.
But it's also a weakness because I try and solve all the problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even sometimes create problems to solve.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, you probably get to your trusting in God quicker. I think for people that go,
I don't know about that.
I don't know, but people that go with the flow, they're like, okay, I can't really handle it. God, what do you think? For me, I'm going to work out plan A, B, and C. And then like I even talked about at church recently, then I'm going to get to the end of it and be like, okay, I planned it all out and I'm still overwhelmed. It's probably because I didn't include God in this. So for me, it takes me longer. I kind of get to the end of me and then invite God in. That's probably one of my biggest weaknesses is let me figure it out first. And then when I can't figure it out, then I invite God in.
Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to set that up for you to say that. It was more, for me, it's more, I don't have a plan. So when I'm stuck in the middle of a situation that's greater than me, it's like I get overwhelmed first. Like it's like what the crap are we gonna do?
Yeah, you're gonna get more. I would say the go with the flow is gonna get more emotionally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get more in my head, stressed, anxious. So I think it's the same because we're both human, but I think yours is gonna be like more emotional, kind of heart driven, and mine's gonna be more like, oh my gosh, I gotta figure this out. So I'm gonna go draw like spreadsheets, brainstorm, whiteboard sesh, figure it out. And you're in our friendship, you're quicker to call probably than I am. Like you're like, hey, I'm wrestling with this. What do you think? And I'm not going to invite anybody in till I kind of have it figured out.
Your worry is going to drive you to a whiteboard. My worry is going to drive me to sleepless nights and anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
but we all wrestle with it. And I think
sure.
if we include God in it faster, we will live less stressed. I mean, Philippians, don't worry about anything.
Yep.
Instead, pray about everything.
Yep.
And I think that's my struggle is the everything. I pray about a lot, but I don't pray about everything, at least first.
Yeah. 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 And I think the other layer to it, practically speaking, is the importance of common sense, which comes from God. Mm-hmm. And so Proverbs talks about common sense is mine, says God. And I think applying common sense to some of these things to keep the emotions down
for sure.
When life's coming at you, it's, well, let's apply some common sense before we quit our job. Let's apply some common sense before we start voicing things we don't actually believe about God or about others.
Yeah. It's amazing when you say it or you write it or you tell somebody else how just when you put stuff in the light, you see all the holes in whatever you're worried about. And so I would just encourage anybody that's struggling with the expectation, the comparison, the bitterness, the envy, just get it out. Get it out in a healthy way. And I'm not saying it's going to be a fix all, but it's a big step.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, I think we're out of time today. So thank you, Applebee's, for your sponsorship. The onion
I can't
petals.
name one thing at Applebee's.
I haven't been there in 15 years, and I named about 4 things. So
the Jack Daniels was TGI Fridays. I keep trying to go back to that. They had all the Jack Daniels barbecue.
I think more places than TGI Fridays has
not
Jack
the liquor.
Daniels.
That was like their big thing.
Just for the record.
And the potato skins at TGI Fridays.
Oh, they had some great potato
Oh,
skins.
man.
Yeah. TGI Fridays is better than Applebee's. That's not a hot take.
Barely.
That's just common sense.
You don't plan to go to TGI Fridays. And if you do, we love you and we're glad you listen to the podcast. But maybe try something better.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I thought you could only eat at TGI Fridays on Fridays, which would have been a bad business model.
That would have been a terrible
They would not have
business
made it,
model.
which is maybe what their model was. So I
Yeah.
don't think many of them are around. But
Yeah, they're not doing great.
anyway, thanks for joining us today. We hope that today was helpful for you. If it was, feel free to subscribe to our podcast, share our podcast with your friends, leave us a rating. That always helps.
5 stars only.
5 stars only. You nailed your part there.
Yeah.
That's great. That was my line, but you took it and
Yeah.
you crushed it.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
hey, we'll see you next Sunday for our next episode.